Drinks, food, art, fun. This is Hops and Spirits Kentucky.
We're back again with some brand new episodes here on the Hops and Spirits Kentucky podcast all week long here at Hops and Spirits. As Bar Conversations is new, our Happy Hour Q&A series is new, and so is our Neat and Mixed reviews. We've taken a little vacation, and we've come back refreshed, to say the least. And before we get into our Q&A with Blue Run Spirits, let's see what's pouring around Kentucky. Congratulations goes out to two Central Kentucky chefs, Sam Four and Isaiah Screech, who have been named semifinalists in the 2023 James Beard Awards Best Chef Southeast. Four runs Tuk Tuk Sri Lankan Bites, a Sri Lankan and Southern pop-up concept that has been garnering fans for several years now. She recently told the Herald Leader that she hopes to have a brick-and-mortar location sometimes this year. Screech, a Danville native, is the chef at Spark Community Cafe in Versailles. It's a small pay-what-you-can restaurant that has been closed for renovations, but recently reopened in early February. The winners will be celebrated in June at a ceremony in Chicago. Bourbon with Heart, Kentucky's first and only arts-focused bourbon charity, recently launched a one-of-a-kind art exhibition at the Frazier History Museum in Louisville. Open to the public through March 30th, Barrels of Heart occupy space on the third floor of the museum. On display are 20 custom bourbon barrels designed by local artists of varying ages, ethnicities, and levels of experience. Entry to the exhibit will be available with any general admission ticket to the museum. The mission of Bourbon with Heart is to leverage the influence and popularity of Kentucky's most iconic spirit, bourbon, of course, to raise funds, awareness, and education around the local art community. Exhibition attendees will vote on their favorite barrel design, and the winning artist will be awarded a cash prize along with a donation to a charity of their choice. The remaining proceeds will be donated to area nonprofits. To learn more about the artist, go to bourbonwithheart.org. And then some news about some openings around Kentucky here. In when I say openings, restaurant openings, Craft Tap and Grill is now open in the former Mellow Mushroom spot on South Upper Street in Lexington. The menu features some burger options, different pizzas and starters like barbecue, pork nachos, and cheesy bread. Also some good drink specials as well, so check them out. And then up in northern Kentucky, Vic and Leslie Hugo opened up Juniper's, the region's first gin and tapas bar. Juniper's is located inside the John R. Green Company building, a former school supply store in Covington. Each floor of the building is about 4,000 square feet, and the bar restaurant occupies the first floor. The space is filled with antique furniture, and eventually they'll add a library with a backgammon and chess table, and every week the global cuisine menu will rotate. So pretty cool, something to check out there. But up next is our Q&A with Shaylyn Gammon, whiskey director of Blue Run Spirits. Enjoy.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hops Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopsspirits.com.
Joining us here for our Q&A this week is Shaylyn Gammon. She's the Blue Run Spirits whiskey director, and she's got a pretty cool story to tell us. Welcome in.
Well, thank you for having me. Happy Friday.
Yeah, I'm excited, and it sounds like, you've been having a lot of fun here lately. And, before we get into maybe all that other fun stuff that you're doing, a little Cliff Notes version on you so people can get to know you, but not too much because, like I said, we've got plenty to cover.
Okay. Yes. So I'm Shaylyn. I've been in the industry for 9 years now. I am a food scientist by training, by school. And that led me ultimately to the alcohol world. So, I'm kind of a hybrid. I'm a art meets science. That's kind of my role in a nutshell. As the whiskey director and a super taster, and just ultimately love flavors and building experiences for people through products.
Well, I was gonna say that food science background's got to come in pretty handy. How does one decide to go into food science, and what does that even mean for those of us that don't understand it?
Yes, one is confused when going into food science because it's a bit of a misnomer. I mean, you might think that it's nutrition or something like that, but really it's not. It's ultimately like science as it pertains to food. So basically you name the science course, and then I took that as it relates to food. So food microbiology, food engineering, food chemistry, and you basically get to know food on a macro, micro level, how the various components interact. And then of course there's sensory science, flavor science, basically. And so I knew that I was just captivated by this world of flavor and kind of the putting tangible aspects to it, kind of an intangible thing. When you describe flavor, you talk about, food in general, like giving that the language to describe it.
Well, and then you clearly have used that to your advantage in what you do nowadays, putting those flavors and all that. When did you transition though from the food science world to the whiskey and the alcoholic beverage world?
Shortly after college, I was in an R&D role directly out of college. I was in the food world, very similar to what I went on to do, really, but it was about a year and a half of experience in R&D that led me directly into the alcohol industry, doing the same thing, but with alcohol.
And now, what was it like for you to transition into that? Was that something that you were just like, this is going to be more fun, or was it just, a new opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, I aspirationally, like, having gone to college at the University of Kentucky, we would go on, I had one class, an R&D class, that we'd visit various companies' headquarters. And we had gone on a field trip to a large alcohol company my senior year. And I remember meeting a sensory scientist and being kind of enamored with the world as it pertains to alcohol. So everything from I remember them talking about the depth that the whiskey, goes essentially into the barrel, and how the flavor and the aging and all these things are affected. And so I remember making kind of a bit of an unconscious decision at that time, like, oh, I want to do this, this is cool. Cause you're still quite undecided in college, right? You're like, I know generally where I want to go, but not really. And so the transition was an obvious one for me when I had the opportunity. And then when I got the role with Campari, it was a no-brainer to kind of go over into the world of alcohol. It's like a bit more glamorous than food and baby food and all the soups and the things I was doing at that point.
Now, you're obviously the whiskey director there at Blue Run. You've helped do some cool things at Campari. Have you always, though, enjoyed whiskey? Because I know at Campari you worked on some vodkas, different things like that. So where does the love of the alcohol world and all that fit in?
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up in most of my life in Kentucky, you're surrounded by bourbon so much, it's really a way of life. And so I think that exposure, and then kind of later in life, realizing the unique perspective that one has from it, like the opportunities that someone has living in Kentucky to be exposed to that really informed my just my desire, I think, on a subconscious level to want to get into bourbon. And at Campari, I did work on all spirit types pretty much, but bourbon was interesting because it's so regulated as compared to, tequila or vodka, especially when you're talking straight bourbon whiskeys, that your hands are a bit more tied and you have to be a bit more creative to truly innovate, versus like vodka, where you're adding natural flavors, or tequila, where it's there's a little more wiggle room there with what you can do and still have it be like a tequila. So I like that challenge. And I've grown to really like whiskey. I could say when I first started, I'd had some bad experiences, like many of us. And it took getting over a bit of a hump to get past that. Yeah.
Well, and you've had some good teachers along the way. I would have to say, whether the Russells, Jimmy Rutledge. I believe you even talked about Peggy No, who I've gotten the privilege to talk to a few times as well.
Yeah.
What's it been like pulling all that knowledge from so many amazing people?
Oh yeah, amazing. I mean, it was just to be 23, 24 years old and working with the Russells, I think it's a while before you realize I'm working with true legends here, So I had I had a very unique intro into the whiskey world by working alongside the Russells. And then I had an amazing boss at Campari that was a true mentor to me. You know, he was just an amazing manager. You couldn't have asked for someone better. So he was a big part of, you know, getting me to where I am today. And then, yeah, moving over, working with Jim Rutledge, like that's been incredible. The interactions I've had with Peggy have been amazing. She's super supportive. So it's a bunch of pinch me type moments with all these legends, and kind of pulling what I can from each one and gleaning as much as I possibly can.
Well, now you're cutting your own path. Like I said, you've left Campari, you're now at Blue Run Spirits. Obviously, a little bit of a difference in the in the size and scope of the companies.
Right.
But what led you over to Blue Run and taking the challenge there?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I like challenge and I like new opportunities. That's what gets me excited. So I think in many ways, I was ready for a change. I'd also you know, I was pregnant and about to have my son. And so there was all of these different factors kind of informing that decision. But I think the one of the biggest things, there's so many reasons why, but one of the biggest reasons was in this vein of learning new things, to go from a large company to going to like a startup turned, now we're considered a small company, but that knowing that I was going to be able to get exposed to aspects of building a company that I would never otherwise maybe get to see was exciting for me. Whether it's finance or distribution or sales or these types of things, I knew that would open a lot of doors and I'd get to learn so much about building a company in general. And then just the autonomy that would come with being the only technical person on the team. I'm the only technical person on the team. I'm solely responsible for all of the liquid. So I welcomed that opportunity and kind of flexibility too, you know, working with a smaller company. And then of course, just the team itself, right? Like the 5 founders, all amazing in their own right. Add Jim Rutledge on top of that, it was an easy decision.
Now your role is whiskey director. So what in the world does that mean? What are you doing here?
Great question.
Still trying to figure that one out.
I was writing a job description earlier today. I was like, what do I do? Yeah, you know, it's just constantly, it's a bit different every day, but the bulk of what I do is understanding inventory. What do we own? What do we need? Physically keeping track of that in a spreadsheet, which is necessary, but takes time to actually get a good visual of what you have. And then it's a lot of sampling and understanding the profiles of things, how old they are, what's going to go where, deciding what products we're making near term, what are more further term projects. And then experimenting, coming up with products that will exist 4 years from now, but also working on the things that are more, you know, right around the corner. So it's a lot of kind of managing. And then I will always be this kind of liaison between marketing and technical, speak very different languages. I don't care what industry you're talking about. I would say this is true. And trying to get those two worlds to be able to match up. And that takes a certain skill set because the languages are so different that you really, a lot of times you could be saying the same thing, but it takes some time to get to the same page. And yeah, so there's a lot of that too.
I was gonna say you enjoy a good challenge, is what it sounds like on all fronts, and I want to say you had maybe one of the coolest challenges ever. You mentioned it. You were pregnant when you were at the tail end at Campari, and you literally, while pregnant, came up with a bourbon that won Whiskey of the Year, and you couldn't sample along the way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
how did that go? And I mean, how much trust did you have in your other senses, I guess?
It's a great question. Well, funny enough, I I taste very little of what I do. I majority of the time use my sense of smell. In fact, I find if I sip too much, it kind of clouds my ability to smell. So I will typically, they say about 70% of taste is smell. So if you think about having a cold, or when you get COVID, and then people's sense of smell is affected. That's why it's so hard to taste. So not only do you have that aspect, but again, when I'm smelling so many different samples, I find it a bit distracting to taste that much. So it wasn't that out of the ordinary, although I would have, of course, have tasted it there at the end, but the situation being what it was, I didn't. Of course, I had other people taste it, but smell alone, I felt like there was something that was working about this blend.
Well, and I was gonna say, obviously, that changes everything once you have a kid and so forth. So how did anything get affected after all that when you're trying to continue on and doing anything, and got a baby smells around on occasion?
Yeah, I mean, I think mostly working from home now, it's certainly challenging with different aromas. There's certain places so we contract distill and bottle at Bardstown Bourbon Company. They let me in their lab, they let me use their equipment basically whenever I want. They're amazing there. So there's a little room that I go into in order to kind of get my white space that I need in order to, but absolutely all those things can affect. There's certain times of the day that I'll go in because I know that they wouldn't have just cleaned the floors or whatever, because that aroma will, all sorts of different things like that influence.
Well, and for those that might be unfamiliar with Blue Run, because obviously that's where you're at now, and you're making some pretty cool products there. What you mentioned, it's sourced for now as you guys build toward the distillery, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what can folks expect when they get a bottle of Blue Run?
Yeah, well, so we source and we also distill our own. I mean, Jim Rutledge is our contracted and master distiller. He and none of that is yet 4 years old. So it's well on its way, but yes, we've been sourcing up till now. And then a lot of what we've sourced has been actually Jim Rutledge distilled. So there is this kind of thread throughout most of our products that it was distilled by Jim. So you have this kind of continuity. A lot of it was distilled so our flagships currently, Reflection and High Rye, they're all distilled by Jim, and most of them were distilled, I'll say all of those products have been distilled at Castle and Key. So it's interesting, having only worked at Campari and only knowing Wild Turkey and Russell's, to kind of step into this world that's so different with the sourcing and the various distillation, like the places, you're introducing so many new variables that I'm learning so much. And for instance, like Castle and Key has its own, they're maybe not like their equipment being older and being what it is, there is sometimes more variability that I see, which when it comes to like blending and things like that, I like that variability because it gives me different pieces to play with. Anyway, I guess if you were to pick up a bottle of Blue Run at this point in time, there's just the ultimate like thing that we're trying to deliver is a great experience no matter what you're picking up. We have our 2 flagships, like I mentioned. We also have had a lot of like smaller drops. That's kind of one of the things that has made us who we are, these limited time offerings. And whether it's a rye or a bourbon or I did something last year called a flight series, which is like micro blends. Ultimately, we want you to enjoy the experience, the bottle, the beauty of the bottle. If you haven't picked up a bottle, check it out, feel it in your hand, feel how heavy that glass is. The liquid itself will always back. So it's, in a nutshell, like a wonderful experience that we hope that people come back and will give us their time to and their energy and their backing for all of our products coming forward.
And then the name Blue Run, where did that come from? Because I know you came in, you're a little over a year now, but I'm sure you've gotten the full lesson on that, because I think that's a kind of a cool name, where you guys are kind of settling foot there in Georgetown in Central Kentucky.
Yeah, my understanding of the name is pretty simple. One of the 5 founders is from Georgetown. His brother is also on our team, huge part of our team. And when they were younger, they used to play in the Blue Run Creek there in Georgetown. I think it was said to have been the water that Elijah Craig first used, or there's some tie there. But it was as simple as that. It was an ode to this childhood creek that influenced our founders' childhood.
And now it's on a whiskey bottle.
Now it's on a whiskey bottle. Has a ring to it.
It does. And like you said, it is a cool looking bottle. I love the logo. And you mentioned that you guys kind of do some fun things. You have the flagships, but you like to have some fun. Obviously, we're in a new year, so I'm guessing some more fun is coming down the road. What can you tell us that won't get you in trouble by anyone?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're still figuring it out, right? Like, that's the beauty of a small company. You can kind of pivot quickly. You're not necessarily set in things, but the recipe that we seem to have landed on at this point is some things that are predictable. Some will bring back certain things year after year, so you kind of have something to look forward to. And then sprinkled with it between those releases will be these like LTOs or limited time offerings. And those will range from single barrels, the flight micro batch type thing, to larger releases. And really the beauty is, as I'm going through, and if I find some inventory that I'm really excited about, we'll find a product, we'll find a way to release it, So there's a lot of flexibility there. But what I can tell you is that there's a lot coming, and it's just going to keep coming, and it's all going to be awesome.
So you're staying busy. You're being challenged, staying busy. And do you get sleep at all? Do you sleep ever?
I do. Oh, I need my sleep. Yes.
Well, with a little one and work, it sounds like you're staying busy.
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, my son's a pretty good sleeper. I don't know if we'd be able to handle if he wasn't.
There you go.
He inherited our love of sleep. I'll say that much. He's not a good eater. He's not a good eater, but he's a good sleeper. Mm-hmm.
Well, that says something. He's a team player and letting you get some rest.
He knows, he knows he can reason through that mom and dad need sleep. And
I love it. Now, you mentioned, the founding in Georgetown, and you guys have been working through some contract distilling and having Jim do distilling. But recently, I know the big announcement was you guys are going to build your own distillery. And how excited are you for that?
Hugely. Like we are pushing forward with that. I've been fortunate enough to be in these meetings and seeing it come to life. I don't say this lightly, it's going to blow minds. It's going to be a global destination, like truly, nothing else like it. So for me, that's extremely exciting. Personally, my own personal, and I think my team as well, we're not me tooers in the sense of like, we just want to copy what's been done. We want to do something. If we're going to do it, we want to do it differently and what feels authentic to us. And so, kind of true to the form of the company, I'm just going to kind of close my ears and my eyes and forget what everyone else is doing and not be influenced by that. Let's just do what feels right for Blue Run. And so the distillery is going to be yet another manifestation of that.
That is awesome. Something to really look forward to. And I guess that my last question for you is you talked about, you got a lot of releases coming up. You got the distillery. Anything else new coming that you can talk about, or what's next for you and the distillery?
I think ultimately our mantra, our goal is to always, we want to keep surprising. We really like this idea of being as inclusive as possible, youthful, playful, any way to kind of deliver on that, we'll continue to do. So you can stay tuned for various expressions and different ways of doing that. But that's like the common thread that, unites us as a team and gets us excited and out of bed each morning.
Well, that is awesome. And like I said, it's been cool to see what you guys have been able to do, what you've been able to do in your time there as well. And I'm excited for the future. And Shaylyn, thank you for taking the time and talking Blue Run and all the fun stuff you've been able to do.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for supporting the brand, and yeah, get back on here in the future and talk about more stuff.
Absolutely.
Find more from Hops and Spirits at hopspirits.com.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.